Δώσουμε και τον κύριο Μιχαηλίδη. Θεωρητικά έχουμε ξεκινήσει, κύριε Κατσόνη. Κάποια στιγμή θα πρέπει να ξεκινήσει. Έχει ξεκινήσει το live στο Zoom και πρέπει στο YouTube κάποια στιγμή να εμφανιστεί.
Let's begin. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, hello to everyone. My name is Lucas Katsonis, as you can see, and as the chairman of Foreign Affairs Institute in Greece, I would like to thank you for watching this upcoming conversation, which I am certain will prove to be very interesting and informative. It is our honor to have with us Mr. Saleh Moslem of the Council of PYD and Dr. Mariana Haroudaki from University of Lincoln, who will coordinate the discussion. And at some point, we will have with us also Mrs. Zeynep Mohammed of the Congra Star. So as you probably already know, the topic of this discussion is the latest developments in Syria from a Kurdish perspective, of course, with a focus on the role of women in this environment. So, after wishing you a thorough, insightful, and fruitful conversation, with great pleasure, I will give the floor to Dr. Mariana Haroudaki to make an introduction and coordinate the following discussion. So, Doctor, please, the floor is yours.
A welcome to all. I would like to thank Mr. Katsonis and Foreign Affairs Institute along with the Tribune.gr for hosting this event. Today we are looking at the perpetuate crisis in Syria, both from a political and hopefully also from a gender perspective. Mr. Saleh Moslem, the former PYD co-chair and member of the co-presidency council, will reflect on the current situation. At this moment, as we all observe, it seems that we are going through once again a return to a situation where Russia, Iran, Turkey appear willing to control developments against at least the West in the region, and more particularly in Syria and in the north. Additionally, it is particularly interesting, I think, to see how the role of women is affected in this environment and which is their contribution to this context. Therefore, Mrs. Zeynep Mohammed, member of the Congress, would enlighten us further as far as this aspect is concerned. Now, we will start with Mr. Moslem, and then I think that Mrs. Zeynep Mohammed faces some connection problems. So we will try and reflect on these, and perhaps if Mrs. Zeynep is not able for any reason to join, maybe Mr. Saleh can cover a little bit of that role as well, and then we can follow up with Q&A from our audience. Mr. Saleh, the floor to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for dear Mariana and the other friends who give us this opportunity to join our old and new friends. So it's a good opportunity, and it's an honor for me to be with you at this time, really. I'm talking from Kamışlı now. I'm in Rojava. Maybe we have problems here, really, for the electricity and sometimes internet being cut. So other than the other problems, we have problem even for the connection. So I don't know, maybe Zeynep will join or not. Maybe she wouldn't have internet or electricity cut. I don't know really. Anyway, for the latest development in Syria, what I can say, maybe all of you are familiar about what's going on, maybe through the media and so on. I would like to just summarize what we are living here now. Well, as you know, when we started for this revolution, we were against the Syrian regime, I mean, in 2011, and then just to get freedom and opportunity to live in Syria with in Syria against the regime, to change the regime to better democracy and so on. And suddenly we found ourselves in the front of some others, which regime was withdrawn from our areas, which we are living these days, the 9th anniversary of the revolution, which was 19th of July. It's after a few days, so we have completed 9 years, not fighting with the regime, but fighting with the others who invaded our areas and even getting war with those mercenaries sent by them and so on. Until now, we didn't stop. I mean, we got some, we were able to establish ourselves a little bit and try to organize ourselves a little bit. But for our project, which was made by the people and people's will, I mean, to be free and equality with, between all the components of northeast of Syria and even in the society for the women and so it's democratic system. We were able to establish it, but some other sides, especially the governments around us, our neighbors, they dislike these projects, which we are trying to establish it and to make it maybe valuable. So there there were some invasions, as you know, in Afrin, and then it was invasions in Syria and Tel Aviv also, in Greece. And the war didn't stop in spite of the ceasefire between and agreements with the Russians and even with the Americans. But the shelling and the war didn't stop, and it continued until now. So we are still, I mean, our people, our civilians are trying to prevent such attacks, shellings by the Turkish side and their mercenaries in Serikane. Maybe you have heard yesterday and the day before there were some attacks in Greece area in Tel Aviv, and also attacks from Tel Rifat in Shaba area to the civilians. So they are aiming to evacuate these places also, to continue their attacks. And I mean, to finish the curse, their plans is to finish the curse and discriminate them. So this is the Turkish plan, and using the mercenaries for these purposes. So still, I mean, even maybe you have also learned in the news that they are changing the borderline between Syria and Turkey. They have removed the wall they have built and taking it to 70 meters inside the Syrian land. So even they are changing the maps also. Other than, of course, I mean, the assimilation of the peoples of Afrin, changing the demographic changing. So they are doing everything they can without any measurements and without obeying any laws and even any rules, international rules and even ethical rules. They are not, I mean, not obeying anything. And even maybe you have heard that they are digging the places for those for martyrs in Afrin. They are saying, well, there are mass killing and so, which is completely lying. So this is another problem. So this is fine. What I mean, we are still facing the attacks by the Turkish government and by their mercenaries in many places, and trying to deal with that. This is one. From the other side, as you know, we have other problems. I mean, we were surrounded, I mean, in our areas, banned from the regime and from the others for just humanitarian aids. We are not able to get anything from any side. And even Turkocha, maybe you have heard, it was also closed by the veto from the Russians, which was only the gate which our people could get medical aid from the United Nations and the WHO were getting through. So it's closed also now. But we have no places other than to get our demands from the black market by those people and drinking from the Syrian regime side or from the other places. So we are banned from them also. This is one. We have difficulties, of course, as maybe some of you are following. We have millions of those displaced people from the other Syrian places, moved from Damascus, from other places, from Homs, from Hama, in our areas, and they are in the camps. We are trying to feed them. So this is another problem. I mean, banning all these humanitarian aids and especially, I mean, what we are saying by this is the medical aid. We are facing also Corona. Uh, we need the vaccinations and nothing trying to help us. Maybe United Nations, they have submitted maybe many thousands, which is not enough. I mean, we are talking about more than 5 million people living in this area. So this is another problem. I need to receive this medical aids from the international organizations also, and even from the United Nations. It's not allowed to come to our areas. The regime doesn't allow anything goes to regime, doesn't reach to our place. So this is another problem. And some other problems living with these camps. The whole camp, as you know, maybe now they have more than 60,000, I mean, people, which they are most of them are Daesh families from Iraqis, from Syrian, from the foreigners. We are talking about around maybe 12 or 13,000 people from the foreigners. We are trying to send them to their back, and nobody accepting to take them. I mean, the women, the children, even those countries. We are talking about more than 40 countries which they belong to them. They have their nationality in these countries. And even today, I think there was a delegation from Belgium, which they get some women and children. They are bringing them. And of course, I mean, we don't like to use those women and children as matter for politics. So we want anybody to come and say, hey, we have some our citizens in your side, and we would like to get them back, and we will give them. And there were many, things happened. I mean, for the countries, especially Russians, maybe they have taken hundreds of their children and women belong to their people, their nationality, and some European countries also. They got some of them, but we need all of them. I mean, we are still talking about 60,000. Maybe Iraqis, it's another problem because Iraqi doesn't want to get them. And for Syrians, we are trying to release them to go back to their families, but they should be accepted by the society. And many people and tribes here in Syria, they don't like to receive them. So we are trying to find the ways how to send them back. Anyway, what I mean, we are not looking to use them as a political matter, just for anything. It's just a humanitarian, maybe case. Anybody wants to get them they have to take them. And another problem, we have more than 10,000 prisoners, which they are in the prison. They are other than the camps. We have prisoners for the fighters of Daesh. And also they are from maybe more than 40 countries. They are different nationalities. We are trying to get any trial for them, even in Syria, in the places which they have crimes over there. And nobody wants to move because we think, as Daesh was international organization, terrorist organization, and there is no laws for terrorism, international laws for the terrorism. And maybe some of them, they belong to one nationality, but they have crimes in different countries. And also they are living in Syria. I mean, maybe any plans for the terrorism, they were planning in Raqqa. And maybe he's a French nationality, but the crime itself, the action was in England. So how we are going to judge him? In England, according to British law or to France's law or to our law. So I think this is international matter. They should find a way for that. And we are not able to establish, I mean, everything because we have our laws and we can make a course for them and trail. But somebody will say, hey, well, your laws is not acceptable. We don't accept it. You should do so and so. So I think this is because the organization is international terrorist organization, and the laws also should be international, accepted by those countries, and even the trial should be by internationally, and all of them they should pay a cost for that. But nobody is taking care. I mean, we are calling everybody to hand to do something to help us to find a way how to judge them and to make trial for them. But also there is nobody is taking care of that. So it's a matter I think it should be taken by the United Nations. So this is another problem. And some other problem we are suffering is the water matter. Maybe our neighbors, I hope that God wouldn't give you such a neighbor. Maybe we are sharing this neighbor with the Greece also. So it's a problem really to have a neighbor just like Erdogan and Turkey. They are using the water as a weapon, water as a weapon against the people. And we are suffering more than 1 million people in Hasaka and around Hasaka. They have no water because just they have shut down, I mean, the station which was in Syrian land, but now is under the control of Turkish control and the mercenaries. And they shut down this station. There is no water coming to Al-Hasaka. We are trying to find some alternatives for that. This is one. And secondly, also they have, I mean, banned the water in Euphrates. Euphrates, which was for the electricity, and there are 2 dams working on that. I mean, so giving the electricity to half of Syria, and so also we are suffering from that. So water is used as a weapon by Turkey, either the water from the Euphrates River or for the water, I mean, wells, which is now mostly are under the control of the Turkish mercenaries in Ras Al Ain and the others. So this is another problem we are suffering. And on the other hand, I mean, we are in the administration north of east of Syria. Of course, I mean, we are trying to make better organization for our people, to organize them, to look after them for the demand. And so this is another problem, I mean, with our people. Of course, I mean, there are many mistakes, many things happen because of the people, which they are still, most of them, they are doing the old mentality, Marxist regime. And so we are trying to teach them to change the mentality. So we are very active. This is another side. From the regime side, we tried. I mean, we knocked their door many times since years and many times, but there is no reaction from them. No, there is no answer at all. And even recently, Mr. Lavrov, which is the foreign minister of Russia, he said, well, there should be a dialogue and so, but we are waiting and there is nothing happened. Still, the regime is thinking that they are going back to before 2011, which is not acceptable by all the Syrian people. We are insisting that we are part of Syria, but Syrian regime should be changed democratically for the people to accept even the Kurdish, I mean, entities should be accepted, I mean, as a component of Syria. Not only the Kurdish people, the Kurdish, the Syrians, the Armenians, and whatever we have, all these minorities should be accepted as the original people living in there, and they should be able to teach and learn their mother language, and they should be sharing the political decision for the country, which is till now, I mean, only the Ba'ath regime was using this and taking the decisions, even political decisions for all the country, which the Syrian people didn't accept. They want to share it. They want for this political decision for the country to be done in the mechanism which representing all the people. And even the Kurdish people, I mean, how they can decide my fate as the Kurdish people. I am in Syria and I have not sharing in the political decision of the country. Nobody is accepting. But the regime still, um, keeping the same mentality, a Marxist regime, they're refusing any change. They still believe that the military way is the only way to solve the problems of Syria. And because of that, even the discussions in Geneva and other places which they were looking for the solution in Syria there is nothing happened till now. And of course, maybe all of you know that the administration of north and east of Syria was, exempted from this to join these meetings in Geneva and the others. So it's another problem. I mean, even because if we are not in these discussions and this dialogue for the solution of Syria, it means the Syrian regime and the others, which they say the opposition, which is the opposition now, is representing the foreign powers, representing Turkey mostly. So it means the Syrian peace is going to be between the Syrian regime and Turkish regime. There is nobody can talk by the name of the Syrian people. Who representing the Syrian people? We are representing. I mean, is northeast of Syria, and if we are not in the dialogue, it means this dialogue is going to be Turkish side and the Syrian regime. So I think the international powers shouldn't accept this situation. They know everybody. I mean, knows that. This is what they call it: Free Syrian Army or Syrian National Army, whatever it is. Which they are, most of them are remains of Daesh and Jabhat al-Nusra. They are in the terrorist list, and Turkey is using them not only for against the Syrian people, but also they use them in Libya, in Azerbaijan, in the other places, and now they are organizing them to send to Afghanistan. So they are mercenaries by Turkey, using them in such a way. So they cannot decide for the Syrian people at all. They are not representing the Syrian people. I mean, those mercenaries and those organizations. So shortly, this is the situation we are living. And of course, I mean, if there is any questions by you, I am ready to answer them according to what I know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for this enlightening feedback. There are a few questions, and in the meantime, if the audience would like to send more, please do so to me.
Sorry, your voice is not so clear. I mean, could you?
Yeah. All right. What about now? Is it better?
No,
is it better now?
Now? Yeah, now it's better.
Okay. All right. So I'm wondering if you, I will pose first the question and then possibly you can sort of wrap up all of them. I was wondering on the ground now, we're talking about the role of Turkey in the north. Can we say that there is a percentage of control, and which is this percentage in terms of land? How much do they control right now? This is one. Two, I would like, if it's possible, to reflect a little bit more on the deal between Russia, Turkey, Iran, and whether there is such a thing as a US response, given the fact, I think, that relatively recently, the administration signed an oil deal with a US company, I think. And finally, we saw the role of women being particularly powerful during the war against ISIS. I'm wondering how, because obviously Zainab was not able to join, so I was wondering how possibly women have been affected in this environment, and maybe what is a potential role that they can, further play within the administration. Thank you.
Well, your first question was about who's controlling what?
I mean, with regards to Turkey, we are saying that they are in the north, but like in terms of land, how much do they control right now? Is there a percentage that they control?
Oh, yeah. Well, Turkey has, as you know, occupied 3 places now, and they are controlling the other places which is not considered to be occupation, like Idlib. They are living with those mercenaries and all together. I mean, Jabhat al-Nusra and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, whatever it is, and remains of Daesh, remains of Al-Qaeda, they are living together. So they are sharing the controlling of Idlib. Afrin is about 4,000 square kilometers, and also the same in Ras Al Ain. So maybe all what they are controlling is just around, I mean, with Afrin and Serikane and Tel Aviv, maybe it's less than 10,000 square kilometers, 3 areas by them and their mercenaries. Other than Idlib, which is about also about 4,000 kilometers. So they are controlling around 15,000 square kilometers with their mercenaries and those groups, which means it's maybe 10% of the Syrian land, or approximately maybe between 8 or 10% of the Syrian land is controlled by Turkey. So this is the place. But I think in these areas, because they have different policies, they are what they are planning, I mean, to have in Idlib is just an Islamic Emirates for the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and so maybe they want to use them, especially those the Arab jihadists like Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and so to be under their control and even controlled by Turkey to use them as they like against Syrians, against the war, even as a base for the terrorist organization to be used everywhere. So this is something different. But for Afrin and Serikani and Tel Aviv is different. They are making the demographic changes. I mean, especially they want to get out all the Kurdish nationals and the Kurdish people, and to make the, I mean, demographic change, replacing them with the Turkmens brought from even from Kirkuk, and now we have heard that they have brought about maybe more than 30 families from Afghanistan. They say, well, they are Turkmens. They are trying to place them in Tel Aviv, and of course, I mean, they are just putting them in the houses which are created by the Kurdish people. And even the Arabs are maybe in Afrin, most of them they brought from Al-Ghouta, which is around Damascus. And maybe Yazidi villages, they have built in, I mean, mosques in the Yazidi villages. So it's completely, I mean, demographic changes for these areas. And maybe tomorrow they will say, well, they are Syrians and I can leave them. But they are also, I mean, making Turkish schools and even using the Turkish money, currency, and so. Yeah, I mean, it's Turkifying them. Or maybe tomorrow, if they leave, they will leave with those or mercenaries and change to Arabized or Turkmenized areas to them. So their policies in Idlib is different from these occupied areas in Rojava. So this is about them. For the Iran and the agreement for, I mean, Asitana, I think maybe, as you know, I mean, the site sharing in Astana, they are Russians and Iranians and Turkish. So any decision on anything just coming by them or issued by them in Asitana, they are in the favor of those 3 sides. Now, the Russian policy is, of course, supporting the regime. They are always, I mean, since 2015, when came to Syria by invitation by the regime, they are trying to strengthen the regime side and giving them the power. Maybe they help them, I mean, to get some lands, especially in the middle Syria around. And there, as you know, also it was made by this Astan, I mean, to change, to bring the people from Ghouta to Afrin and giving Afrin to Turkish against the Ghouta to come to be given to the regime. So they have exchanged the place, and the Russian played a big role for that. I mean, for exchanging this land. So they are still following this policy. The Iranians also, what their policy in Syria to expand the Shia. I mean, in the other areas, just like what they have Shia people, I mean, around Damascus or in the seaside of Latakia or whatever it is. They are trying to expand their places to make Shia. It's ideological, you know. And the Russian, of course, I mean, they have another aim. They, as you know, they have agreed with the Syrian regime for many contracts with the gas and with the oil and even for the gas in the East Mediterranean and so with the regime. And so it's mostly it's pragmatic for the economical maybe benefits for the interest for the Russians. They are looking for that. And when they are pushing, I mean, our areas to the hack of the regime is in order to get what we have. I mean, a little oil. They want to get it through the regime because if they, we cannot agree in the same conditions with them. So they are trying to connect us to the regime and buy the contracts to get it from the regime itself. So again, it's a kind of taking this oil to their side, I mean, through the regime. So this is the way they are dealing. For the Turkey, and I think Turkey is mostly, they are, I mean, a Kurdophobia. They want to finish the Kurdish people. I mean, maybe some of you know that there is a collapsing project for them, collapsing the Kurdish people. They have implemented this even by supporting the Daesh in Shangar, in Syria, and so. And we believe that Daesh was even created and weaponized and everything by the Turkish, just in order to finish the Kurdish people. Otherwise, why Daesh didn't go to Damascus? Why they came to Kobani, to the Kurdish areas? And then the Turkish side also used Daesh in the Turkish land. I mean, in their country also. You know, the explosion in Ankara, in Diyarbakir, in Suruc, made by Daesh, and Daesh said, yes, we have done it. And I think this is mostly the cells which they have connection with the Turkish meat against the Kurdish people to be used. And I mean, they have used Daesh against the Kurdish people, even in Rojava or in Turkey and even in Iraq, in Shangal. So everywhere is by them. So this is a part of this collapsing project which they have against the Kurds. And even now, the attacks being done in the north of Iraq, I mean, for Kurdistan, South Kurdistan, it's according to that. They want to occupy all Kurdish areas, Kurdish land, I mean, everywhere. So this is them. So we cannot expect anything from such, I mean, an organization called Astana or such a dialogue from the Astana sharing by the Turkish and the Iranians or also the Russians cannot accept anything. And according to that, the Iranians are expanding, I mean, in the other areas, but just because we don't have Shias in our places, they cannot expand in the Kurdish area or in northeast of Syria. It's difficult for them to do because our vision for them, I mean, just we consider the Ayatollah or Wali al-Faqih is just Khalifa for the other Sunnis and Daesh. The same position. I mean, one is doing everything by the name of Khalifa, and the others is Ayatollah Wali al-Faqih is deciding everything. So it's the same system. So it's not acceptable by us. But they are expanding in the regime areas and so. And in future, we don't know what will happen. But we are trying to, I mean, for ourselves, to defend ourselves. I mean, that's all we can do. So this is the way. And your third question was is for
about the role of women. Yeah.
Role of women. Yeah. Well, I think the women is a strategy for us from the beginning. I mean, even before the Syrian revolution. Of course, you know, we are trying to be tied with the idea of Mr. Öcalan and philosophy. So this idea saying, well, it's how if you want the free country, the free society, the women should be free, and they should the women should decide and share everything in the. And we were doing that, I mean, in our party, in PYD, since we have established since 2003. And then in our projects, I mean, when we decided to have, I mean, councils and whatever it is, our organizing. So we give a big importance to the women also in our area, because now if we are talking about the Yekatiyastar or Congress or whatever it is, it was established in 2005 then. So by our project, we feel that really the women should do everything, and because by these ideas and what happened, the women maybe became she can protect herself and also protect the society, and we have seen that very well in the recent struggle, I mean, for fighting against the Daesh, and even in our all organizations, and we have co-presidential system, and the women are doing very well, especially, I mean, in the Middle East, because there is no right for the women, and because ourselves, I mean, as a man or organizations, we feel there is something missing if we don't find the women beside us in whatever we do. So we should share the women. I mean, even for the any organizations and presidency and whatever. So if there is no women in the work, we feel that there is something missing. They should share everything. And really, it's a big gain for us. I mean, to have, because you are doubling the powers for the society, and also the women when she is, I mean, became a factor for changing the society. So it's a big step for that, and for our society. If we are talking about the free society, we should talk about the free family, free women, free people, to make a freedom for the society. And this is only the work which women can do. So this is our belief, and they have played a big role, I mean, in the fight, in the organizing, and even for all the activities, for establishing, I mean, for organizations, I mean, belong to the democratic self-administrations. And now, because maybe the society a little bit is different, we have difficulties to change the mentality in the Arabic areas, like Deir ez-Zor, like Raqqa. We think if we succeed to make the women active in these areas, they will be able to change the mentality of the men also. So I think this is the most important point. We should give a big, I mean, work for the women in these areas, because they will be able to change the mentality of the men, and even old traditions, which like tribes and so everything should be modified, changed. And this is only to be done by the women. So this is our belief.
Thank you. Thanks. There is another round of questions. First of all, if there is any sort of noticeable change with the rise into the US presidency of Biden, obviously we're talking about the changing sort of administration. So do we observe any sort of difference that matters and you would like to reflect on it? Secondly, about the role of France, the question of the role of France, I think, is interesting because we have seen France playing an outstanding role, not only in the fight against ISIS, but broadly speaking, with the beginning of the crisis in Syria overall. So I would like your input in this one. And finally, there is another question with regards to the Turkish attacks on Kurdish territories, not only in the north of Syria, but also in the Iraqi Kurdistan, so the Kurdistan region of Iraq. So the question is, do you think that there are particular reasons behind that? For example, in the case of Syria, is it a matter of sort of controlling the borders? Which is the main rationale that you can identify behind these attacks, and maybe why now as well in both sort of areas? So yes, these are the questions.
Well, maybe your voice is not so clear. What I could understand, you were asking about the role of the international powers in Syria and the France.
The role of France in particular, but also now with the change in the US administration, if this change matters and if there is any sort of progress or any sort of alteration in the relations between the administration in Syria, in North Syria, vis-a-vis Biden's administration, and finally about the rationale behind the mutual attacks that now they're taking place both in the Kurdistan region of Iraq and in your territories.
Well, yes. Well, I think now the administration north or east of Syria it's a reality. I think everybody should deal with it. If they are even talking about the peace in Syria and so on, then they cannot ignore, this administration here. We are talking about more than 5 million people. So how you can find it? So in some ways, they should deal with this system and for northeast of Syria and administration. But if we are talking about the United Nations, I think we have said many times it should not be United Nations. It should be United States, because it's states is looking for the states. Even for the national states, or representing all the nations. The countries, the states, not the nations, because there are many nations now that are not represented in the United Nations. So we are talking about the states. Syrian states and so on. So if you would like, if you wish them to be interested in your case, you should be a state, and they should maybe, if you do something, for Syria or for the Kurdish people or Kurdish nationality, they wouldn't accept to do it because we don't have a state. So this is the problem. They are trying to deal with these countries, but there is no way because United Nations doesn't accept it. And even for the Syrian revolution, when they started to accept the opposition, they have collected about 120 countries. I think it was in Morocco or in somewhere, and they said we recognize, this opposition as representing the Syrian country.
I think there might be a connection problem. Yeah, I think there is a connection problem. Let's see whether Saleh can come back. I'm afraid that there is a problem with the connection right now. Let's see if it can come back. Mr. Saleh. That's expected vis-a-vis the situation in there. Internet a little bit poor, but let's see if you come back, and then if not, I think we would have to end up the session soon. Okay, that's great. You're back. Just unmute, please, and then can you unmute? It's muted. Your voice is not really very clear. Yes, great, please.
So it's from our internet was cut.
It's okay, it's fine. There are problems with the UK.
Yes.
Line, what about there? It's fine.
So what we are trying, I mean, to deal with us, I mean, for many matters, even for Syrian dialogue, I mean, to use, to deal us as opposition, a part of the Syrian opposition with the regime, till we find a political solution for the Syrian as a country, and we should be part of it. So this is what we are looking for and trying to, but they are refusing because there are many opposing our positions like Turkey and maybe because of their interests and Europe and so. And even when they are dealing with us, even for those, for the getting the Daesh women and the children and so, they are doing in very shameful way. I mean, just trying to do it secretly or through some other organizations, not officially. But now it's broken. Now we can find some delegations coming directly to Kamishli and dealing with our foreign affairs and so. But it's not officially yet. I mean, the most encouraging step I think was taken by the Sweden, and we hope, I mean, the other countries also to follow it. In France's case, also we have a deal. I mean, mostly they are dealing with the Democratic Syrian Forces, just for against the Daesh and those others, and they are trying. I mean, to help us in the humanitarian aids. Them and also the United States trying to do it. But of course, I mean, the gates are closed. In some ways, they are trying to find some ways through fish harbor and so to deal with the administration in some ways. But all we need is not that one. All we need is the political help to find the solution for the Syrian political solution, and we are part of it to help us in this way. And I think this is a matter not only for us, it's for big power. They should agree how the solution it could be. I mean, we hope, I mean, especially the Russians and the United States and European Union. And so if they decide the solution for Syria, it should include the Kurdish people also, because we believe there wouldn't be any solution, political solution, except, if they are accepting the democratic administration in our areas. There will be, and also we are not obliged to any solution. We are not sharing in it. So I think this way they should find a solution for it, and maybe if they are able to include us. And on the other side, we believe nobody will come to our areas and hold a weapon to defend us. We are trying to strengthen our abilities to defend ourselves, and we're able to do that. But of course, I mean, we have a lot of, we don't have, I mean, if we don't have, for example, I mean, the air defense system, we cannot do, because Turkey is using all those planes against us, using these drones and those weaponized drones against us. So if we don't have things against that to defend ourselves, we still need some other countries to be our side and to say to Turkey, well, stop these attacks, I mean brutal attacks to those civilian people or civilian areas. Otherwise, I mean, on the ground, we are able to defend ourselves, and we have organized ourselves. I think the evidences are clear to everybody when we defeated Daesh, and we are still struggling against all those organizations supported by Turkey, and with modern weapons in their hands, and even with the tanks, either in Afrin or in Serikani, we are able to defend ourselves. But of course, I mean, we need also somebody to help us in this situation. So, but all we need, I mean, looking for France and the other countries and our friends just like Greece and the other countries to help us in the politic ways, I mean, diplomatically, to make us to join, I mean, in Geneva, in the United Nations, and even to prevent using vetoes against those border gates to get the humanitarian help. I mean, even not, we are not talking only, we are, I mean, talking about the medical aids in our areas, because we are not able to produce anything in our areas. And they should think, I mean, we have, as I said, we have millions of those displaced people from the other areas in our areas. So they should do something for them. And I mentioned the Daesh camps, which we are feeding them, protecting them. I mean, security, and it's a problem for everybody, it's an international problem. They should be involved doing something. And even for, can you imagine, I mean, for the recent attacks, the Turkey's aim was to reach these camps and prisons to save those mercenaries, to leave them back, I mean, to send them to anywhere. So we have to protect them, and this protection of those prisoners and those camps, I think it should be international matter. I mean, for the United Nations or some other countries to find a mechanism to help us in such a way. But nobody is doing, and we hope in future we'll still, I mean, call for it if we are able to get some aid or help from the European Unions and maybe, and now we don't know. But mainly what I can mention, they are dealing with the democratic Syrian forces, I mean, by the United States, by France and other countries, and those the coalition, all the countries of them, including, of course, NATO countries and UK and so, whatever it is. They are dealing with democratic Syrian forces, mostly more than political administration and so in the area. So this is one. The secondly, for the goals of Turkey by attacking, I mean, Iraq, and so as I mentioned, well, they have Kurdophobia. They want they have to fight the Kurds. I mean, according to their mentality, everywhere. And the problem is, Turkey is attacking Iraq and attacking Syria and attacking the Kurdish people everywhere, and even Europe. You know, there were many suicides in Europe. I mean, killing the people, kidnapping them, getting them to Turkey, whatever it is. All these crimes against the Kurdish people everywhere is coming from one point, because Turkey was not able to solve its Kurdish people inside, Kurdish matter, Kurdish issue inside Turkey. So if they have solved it, I mean, according to what happened, I mean, that maybe they had a dialogue with the inside Kurdish people, I mean, inside Turkey, with the HDP and with the PKK, and even they were meeting Mr. Öcalan in the prison, but in 2013, 2012, 13, 14. There was a very good situation. I mean, all the people, they were free, and there was I mean, a kind of stabilization in the Kurdish areas, and Turkey was not attacking anywhere, because it was a kind of, a kind of agreement with the Kurdish people. So if they solve their Kurdish issue in Turkey, they don't need to attack Syria and attack Iraq and attack everywhere all around. Of course, if they to do it. But the Turkish aim, till now, especially Erdogan, when he came to power, they are trying to do the Misaki Milli agreement, which was, I think, the declaration by the Turkish parliament in 1920, called Milli. But this Milli, even Misaki Milli, it was between two nations, between the Kurdish people and Turkey. But of course, they refused it, and they want everything to be Turkified. And even the Milli, I mean, if they say Misaki Milli now, it means the Turkish expansion to all these areas. I mean, occupying all the Kurdistan, all Kurdish area to Turkify it. And this is after this plan. One part of it, I mean, maybe the Turkish dream since 1925, 1926, with the agreement with the, I mean, UK and England, it was about Kirkuk and the oil in Kirkuk. I mean, till now, it was their dream. And still they are dreaming to go back to Kirkuk and Mosul and occupy it to get, I mean, and this was mainly mentioned, I mean, by all the, I mean, high-rank people, I mean, in Turkey, just like Demirel and the presidents and so, and even Turgut Özal, they said, well, we need Kirkuk, we should go to Kirkuk to occupy it. And now there are many, also Bahçeli and so, what they are saying now, they say Kirkuk and Mosul should be the 82nd, I mean, part of, or I mean, the government of the Turkish, because they have 81, I think, 81 wilayat, and they want to be the 82nd. It should be Kirkuk belonging to them. So they are saying openly what they are doing. The only thing they are obstacling and not letting them to do it is the PKK problem. Maybe they can, maybe the second step to change those Kurdish people and do in the South Kurdistan what they have done in Afrin and Serikani, and so trying to do the same in that area also. Of course, I mean, saying that PKK is over there and so it is just excuse, nothing more than that.
Thank you. Thanks. At this point, I would like to thank Salah Muslim for his presence here today. The Foreign Affairs Institute that they hosted this event. More importantly, I would like to thank those that they attended today, but also those that they are watching us. Let's just continue the discussions in different panels in this sort of in different forums, this sort of on this sort of developments, because I think it's all of them, they're really critical about what sort of world we are making or we are about to make. Thank you very much. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thank you very much.
Bye to everyone.
Bye.